If I were to tell you one single country had the largest population coupled with explosive macro shifts in both the demographics and technology, would that interest you? Hi everyone, my name is Justin. To start off this presentation about China, I'll be presenting the country overview. We'll be going over the population demographics followed by one-child policy, macro level economic shifts, and ending off with cultural attractions and pastimes. Starting off the country overview, located in East Asia, China is one of the largest countries in the world in terms of area. From east to west, it covers over 3,100 miles, and from north to south, it spans over 3,400 miles. With so much area in one country, it has a large variety of landscapes as well, from mountains to flatlands. The large area itself really benefited China from decades with its emphasis on agriculture and its room for large population growth. On the topic of geography, according to Comisco Global Consulting, there is a large segmentation in regions based on the languages spoken. For example, Mandarin is the national language of China, but Cantonese and other languages are spoken too, as demonstrated by the map. Beijing and Shanghai are the largest cities that speak Mandarin, as hinted by the large blue section, as well as Guangzhou is the province that speaks Cantonese. Currently, China is the largest recorded population, nearing 1.5 billion, and is expected to grow 0.3% each year, which is relatively small compared to some of its previous decades of growth rates. During the 20th century, China actually had issues with its exponential growth rates. They actually had to put regulations there to prevent outpacing the food production, which kind of segments into our next topic, which is the one-child policy. In an attempt to slow down the birth rates from 1980 to 2015, China imposed the one-child policy. This policy limited each family to only be able to have one child legally. The purpose of this law was to limit the population growth until the economic and agricultural infrastructure can keep up with its demand. During the time the one-child policy was implemented, China's economy was backed on mainly agriculture and making sure that each of the citizens were putting in work to achieve these agricultural needs. You can see from the infographic on the right that population growth slowed, the median age increased, and as well as fertility rates decreased. While in theory the one-child policy would fix many of the issues, decades later, they actually caused new ones to arrive. Currently, China is one of the largest populations, but its growth rate hasn't been really impressive compared to its peers. This is due to the one-child policy. The Chinese citizens no longer find the same interest in having children as before. According to the Wall Street Journal, there have been several ideas of stimulus plans to jumpstart the country's birth rates, but all of them were turned down. The once proposed China policy really was to fix has its intent to fix the birth rates, actually caused many new problems in decades later. Moving on to our next topic of the macroeconomic shift, according to the Journal of Asia-Pacific Economy, China's GDP before was dependent on its population and manual labor through farming. The government kind of soon realized that it wasn't sustainable when many other countries were growing much faster through the use of technology. And according to a publishing done by Wiley, titled China's Mobile Economy, the middle class was really one of the main reasons why China's economy really kind of boomed. Once the middle class was able to have access to cell phones, laptops, and Wi-Fi, there was a large expansion of e-commerce websites. Here we see 3 of the main e-commerce websites China has to offer. And e-commerce itself is basically a really simple terms of selling products via the internet. While all these companies do e-commerce, there's some nuances in the business model. According to the Wall Street Journal, Alibaba uses a B2B business model where they sell products to other businesses, while AliExpress and Taobao uses B2C, where they sell one business selling directly to consumers. The rise of e-commerce really paved the world for companies like Alibaba to dominate the Chinese market and set standard for many other Chinese technology companies. Looking forward, China's technology boom really caused increase in consumer spending and positioned itself in great standing for many years to come. Moving over to major accomplishments and tourist attractions, the Great Wall of China is one of the attractions as we see on the left, when it goes over 350 miles and passes through Hebei, Tianjin, and Beijing. The initial purpose of the Great Wall of China was to protect the Chinese territories in times of war. On the right, we see the Imperial Palace, one of other Chinese important buildings. The Imperial Palace was once home to many Chinese emperors and their households. Both of these attractions attract over millions of people each year. Sports itself is also a really important pastime in China. The three main sports include basketball, which is the CBA, table tennis, which is CTTSL, and lastly, badminton due to Chinese Badminton Associations. In terms of icons, Jeremy Lin from the CBA is very influential. He actually used to play in the NBA in the United States and had a breakout season with the New York Knicks a decade ago. To conclude, the next time you think about China, remember its rich history and innovations. This is Justin Zhou presenting the country overview. Thank you all for listening, and I'll pass on to the next speaker.